Welcome again to Anderson Speedway. You see the Stanley Chevrolet Olds Camaro pace car with Paul Marshall, the driver. As we're coming around, Mike Miller is my name, Greg Wood alongside, and we're almost set to go in the National Crown for the figure eights.
We are ready to go. They've lined up nicely. Kenny Wright has the green flag in his hand, and he puts it out as we go down to start 50 laps of the National Crown.
Terry Malone, of course, and Rod Phipps at the front of the pack, and early excitement we almost certainly can't anticipate with this many cars, 25 cars in this field, as Phipps quickly moves up front as they start to spread out just a little bit. But Greg Wood, you know figure eight racing so very, very well. We can expect some early excitement, can't we?
Oh, with this number of cars, you can see the field is strung out already in action right off the bat. That is Ronnie Phipps right there in the lead, and this time down, somebody's going to have to make a decision through the crossover. Looks like we have the caution coming out. Been an incident somewhere. Oh, there we see Ricky Tharp pulling back onto the racetrack off the backstretch there. Looks like there was some contact with him up in turn 3.
Give us a sense, if you will, what the rulings are now in terms of causing cautions and triggering incidences. Those cars that will trigger an incident will have to start then at the back of the pack on restarts, correct?
That's it, exactly. And we see as we come back down to green, the field has been realigned with those that were involved in that incident, have gone to the tail, but it looks like everyone restarted after that, as Ronnie Phipps jumps out into the lead again.
Yes, indeed. Terry Malone right behind. It looks like Mike Riddle Jr. there is running third as they make their way around. 50 times around the figure eight in this historic event, the 47th annual National Crown for the figure eights, as they again come up to the cross, and some of the slower cars will have to come to a halt, allowing time for the leaders to come ripping by, and excitement at this event. And look at Ronnie Phipps with Terry Malone right behind him. Let's see if we can pick up some of the other machines. Boy, you know, the camera always focusing on the cross primarily, and that's because generally that's where we will see some of the, shall we say, closer action here, huh?
Boy, that's exactly right. The crossover is what it's all about. All of the action is going to be right there. I mean, you're going to have racing through the turns, but when you're, we see big action right there in the crossover. And
Barry Jackson, Greg, in the 8X car, also Gary Moore in 15. And let's see if we can catch a number.
Boy, 68 Ricky Tharp there. He's just not having any luck at all. Was involved in that first lap incident. Had a flat tire, went into the pits and changed that, came back out and was sitting there waiting his turn to get through traffic because, as we alluded to earlier, he had gone to the tail on the restart.
And look at the damage on Barry Jackson's machine. The right front tire is completely ripped off the rim, and almost certainly that's going to end the evening for Barry Jackson. Tough way to go out this early in the National Crown for the figure eights. Action continues in Anderson Speedway at this 47th annual Busch Trophy Case and Embroidery National Crown for the figure eights. Mike Miller along with Greg Wood, and there's no better place to be, Greg, as we watch the top cars make their way around. That, of course, means Ronnie Phipps and Terry Malone right at the front of the pack, and then Mike Riddle Jr. is running third.
That's right, followed closely by Joe McKinney and Herb Rose. You see there that about the top 10 or 12 are really bunched up and racing hard here early in the race. See Joe McKinney looking on the outside of Herb Rose there and racing for position as they come down into turn 3. Looks like he's going to take away the position.
And the 7, that's Jeremy Bronner, gets spun around, the Fortville driver. Bad place to get spun around right at the crossover, although kind of like in the crook of it, so he will back out and wait for the opportunity for him to get back into the flow as the leaders scream on by. So Bronner quickly goes down a lap almost in a matter of moments.
Yes, I believe so. Boy, that was just a little farther, and that would have been a very dangerous situation to be parked in there. The field did a very good job getting by him, paid good attention, and had no problems.
Again, no change up front. The top cars remain, and what are some of the real keys to successful figure eight driving, Greg, from your perspective, just being able to anticipate situations?
Traffic plays a major part, especially in a race this long and with this many cars. You've got 50 laps, plenty of time to sort things out, but also if you get caught in traffic early, the leader can get away and you have a lot of ground to make up. So the key is to stay close, pick your holes, and not make any mistakes.
And that hasn't happened yet to this point, as let's see, Terry Addison bringing up the tail, spins out just moments ago as he comes across quite a bit of smoke. And let's look.
That's Mike Riddle Jr. looks like he's definitely got a problem and is smoking all the way around the racetrack. We'll have to keep an eye on that and see what's going to happen there. I'm sure track officials are going to want to pull that car down and at least take a look at it.
And Riddle, and the caution appears to now have come out, is Riddle hopefully will stay up high. No, he's going to duck down inside, and he will certainly get the flag from Kenny Wright to get aside and assess the situation with his car. One would think at this point in time he may be finished for the evening, but not necessarily so.
Not necessarily. You know, that's an unfortunate situation. That's a real tough situation for Mike Riddle. That's a lot of smoke, and he knows anytime that there's a lot of smoke like that, there's a good shot of Kenny Wright in the flag stand, assessing the situation, getting some reports there on the radio. You see Mike Riddle going back in the pits. We'll find out. We'll get a report and see what is the case with that car.
As the excitement of this 47th annual Busch Trophy Case and Embroidery National Crown for the figure eights continues, the restart is underway.
Ronnie Phipps jumps back out in the lead once again. So far has not been headed this race, and actually creates a gap between himself and Terry Malone, and would like to jump out there and make it a bigger gap.
Joe McKinney out of Middletown, Indiana, is safely running fourth, although as we look and see, or running third, I should say, pardon me, running fourth right behind McKinney. We'll try to get a look now as they
Herb Rose.
It is Herb Rose, the veteran from Anderson, who maybe has more experience in figure eight racing than anybody in the region, huh?
I would think so. You know, Herb Rose, just a point of fact here, raced in the very first figure eight race ever held at Anderson Speedway back in 1960.
Wow, that is amazing.
He's been doing it a long time. He knows his way around the figure eight, and he is a former winner of the National Crown.
Right behind Herb Rose in the 21 is Doug Riddle from Anderson. So all of our top cars pretty much have been there throughout so far. There you see the leaders making pass as some of the slower cars will split. Again, pretty much a standard move in figure eight racing.
Absolutely. You know, of course, these guys, they make it look very easy, but like I said, traffic plays such a big, important role in this type of race. You know, any little bit of miscue, one of those back markers not see you coming and come down on you or come up into you, cut tire, that type of situation, it's very hairy for the leaders.
Greg, Ronnie Phipps looks sensational, but you have to think, oh, look at Terry Malone as he gets loose just for a little bit, banging with one of the slower cars, Terry Addison there from Anderson in car 37. How difficult is it in a 50-lap event like this to really just run away from the field? Hard to do?
Oh, I think it'd be very difficult. Ronnie Phipps would have to really get some brakes. They'd really have to have some traffic come between he and the next 4 or 5 cars there, because those guys are going to be doing everything they can to keep him in their sights.
Still the same with Phipps, Malone, Rose, and McKinney. By all accounts, still our top 4. There you see a cluster of cars battling for 5th, 6th, and 7th position as the leader, Ronnie Phipps, screams across the crossover here of the figure eight at Anderson Speedway. And watch how he maneuvers his cars, really anticipating well ahead. There was a case there as he blew through right before the other cars came through, and those cars running second and third were forced to slow up just a little bit, allowing him to extend his lead even further.
Boy, that's right. He had the preferred line through traffic that time, as we see Chris Bear there and Rod Phipps working his way up nicely through traffic from, you know, fairly deep in the pack starting position.
Boy, the Phipps are well represented. Riddle's another set of names. Tharbs. There are some families that have an involvement and experience and reasons why this is such a great historic event here at Anderson Speedway. And we're off to a dandy of a first portion of this race. Once again, you see Ronnie Phipps skate across the crossover, avoid some other cars as he blows around the backside, and beautiful camera angles provided here as the fans literally are standing up around the fence, and the 13 gets loose. I believe that might have been Larry Phipps.
Yes, I believe it was.
And he is over into the infield as we go back up front and watch Ronnie Phipps dominate through the first half of this race.
Ronnie Phipps has got himself in a position that he really wants to be. He's opened up a gap between he and second, third, fourth place, so he can really be patient. He doesn't have to take huge. Oh, we see Gene Houston having a big problem there as he slides, and there's a fire under his car right there at the crossover.
Anderson's Gene Houston in car 22. Something breaking on his machine, and certainly the caution will come out. What's even further amazing is he pulls away, and no safety official or anybody even was in a position to come out and tend to that car. That's very rare. Normally you would think something's coming out. Well, with that excitement, we tell you to stick around because we have more of the National Crown for the figure eights still ahead from Anderson Speedway. More from Anderson Speedway for the restart and the excitement of the 47th Annual Bush Trophy Case and Embroidery National Crown for the figure eights. Mike Miller along with Greg Wood, and things are happening with Ronnie Phipps at the front of the pack, Greg.
Absolutely. We see Joe McKinney's gotten around Terry Malone and is challenging Ronnie for first place. Joe McKinney is no stranger to winning the National Crown and winning figure eight races at Anderson. He would like nothing better than to put his car right out there in the lead and check out from these guys.
Let's see who else is in there. Mike Riddle Jr. looks like holding up the fourth spot.
That's
and
Doug Riddle.
Doug Riddle Jr., I'm sorry.
Mike Riddle went out earlier with the problem. We did get a report, and they are brothers, by the way, and teammates. We did get a report that that was transmission fluid that was causing the smoke from Mike Riddle Jr.'s car.
Tough break for one of the Riddles, but certainly Doug looks strong at this point in time. Still very much running up front with the leaders as they continue to make their way around.
Absolutely, and we see this is lap traffic and slower traffic right there in the crossover as the leaders come by. That's a good look at the top 6 cars, I believe, just went through there, all on the lead lap, all basically nose to tail.
Also a good look at really where the action is in figure eight racing and how excellent some of these drivers are. This has been a relatively clean event as these sort of races go. And again, you'll see some drivers elect to play it differently. One will slow, but the more aggressive, successful types like Ronnie Phipps and Terry Malone will blast across. Now Malone looks to make a pass.
Joe McKinney had to get on the brakes real hard there. We saw smoke come off the right front tire, and Terry Malone didn't hesitate, pulled over and went right around him, and we'll see him lead. He comes back into second place there, and Doug Riddle is up challenging Joe McKinney there for third place also.
That may be the best matchup on the track right now, as you see Joe McKinney and Doug Riddle have at it. But what about a guy like Terry Malone? He won the feature a week previous to the National Crown in figure eights, and he is certainly a veteran competitor, right?
Absolutely. Terry Malone has raced in many figure eights and won, I believe, 3 figure eight features this year at Anderson. His car is in good shape. He's on a roll. He looks to be in good shape to put another one in the record books tonight.
And we do have the caution coming out. We'll look for an indication with Ronnie Phipps, the leader of our National Crown for the figure eights. We remain under caution. There you see Terry Malone.
You see the field bunching up there behind Ronnie Phipps and their drivers getting their positions sorted out. Oh, there goes the track crew. They're going to work on a situation there on the racetrack. I believe that that was the cause of the caution right there. He spun. Terry
Addison in 37. Oh, you can see some of the damage to his car quite a bit as the tail end of his car. Maybe some tire rub, actually. Addison down a couple of laps anyhow to the leaders. And there are the leaders in order. 1, 2, 3, Phipps, Malone, Doug Riddle,
Joe McKinney
in 4, and then Doug Riddle in 21. And we'll see if we can follow him down, looking to restart rather quickly.
Let's mention here, Rich Boyer in the 2X is one that is always a strong contender week in and week out in the figure eight. He had a mechanical problem earlier, has been running very well, was fast right out of the box, but after about 10 laps, something went awry on his car.
And the green flag from Kenny Wright comes out. And the restart for the National Crown of the figure eights as we continue to have at it. And with these sort of top guys that have dominated through the first portion of this race, one can only anticipate what's ahead when it gets down to crunch time for this very prestigious event. Amazing that it has gone on, Greg Wood, for longer than you've been around, huh?
That's exactly right. More years than I've been alive. Boy, this is an excellent race for the lead here. Terry Malone giving Ronnie Phipps all he wants at this point. Terry is doing everything he can to get around Ronnie Phipps.
Beautiful views from our camera vantage point here, and Phipps and Malone. Phipps has been the leader for some time. Terry Malone has been no worse than, I believe, third. He started second in this National Crown for figure eights, and he remains in that second position. There you see some of the slower cars in a cluster come across. as the leaders will shortly follow, and there they come through, true to form. Phipps and Malone, 1-2. That's where the best matchup on the track should be, and seems to be the case at this hour.
Boy, that's exactly right. One thing that we ought to mention, notice one of the cars that's no longer running in the top 5. Herb Rose fell out a few laps ago. We did get the report that his car was overheating, and so Herb Rose is not going to have the opportunity to put another National Crown in his record book this year.
Look at Terry Malone challenge Ronnie Phipps. What are the keys now here when you have two cars equal? Does it become a case now who handles themselves better in both the crossover and braking situations, right?
That's exactly right. Ronnie Phipps has to do everything he can to protect his position, protect his line. Any small opening that Terry Malone sees, he's going to stick his nose into, and he's going to make his way around Ronnie Phipps.
And those first two cars are very much by themselves. Then we go back just a little bit. It looks as though Joe McKinney in 4 is still running 3rd, although there's Joe in the 4 car running 3rd, although a bit off the pace, certainly.
Followed closely there by Doug Riddle. I believe that Joe McKinney, Doug Riddle, and Chris Bear and Rod Phipps right there are running as fast as the leaders. They're just not getting through traffic quite as quickly right now.
As we continue with the exciting action. Oh, some close action there in the crossover. Now watch the leaders come around from the top, coming up behind what looks to be one of the slower cars. Terry Addison may well be back in it, but he is well off the pace. And there you see Phipps and Malone. Malone pressing just a little bit to try to get position on Ronnie Phipps, although still with time left in this event. It's more of a case, I think, not quite yet to do anything dramatic to try to take the lead.
No, it's not. Terry Malone is a very patient, very steady racer, although aggressive. Like I said, if he gets a hole, he's going to go through it, but he's not going to make any silly mistakes and cause himself a problem where some of the other guys can catch him and get around him. He's going to wait right there and wait for Ronnie Phipps to make a mistake.
Good point, Greg Wood. How much are the slower cars obligated to stop at the crossover when the leaders come around? Not necessarily.
There is no obligation. What you need to do, though, keep in mind as a car that's off the pace is these guys are racing for the lead, and they're racing for the money and the pride, and they're not going to slow down or stop. They're not going to give any inch that they don't have to.
Still the same 4 cars, although the top 2 remain together. Ronnie Phipps and Terry Malone, you'll see them cross. There's Phipps, and oh, look,
there's a pass for the lead.
Yeah, absolutely. Terry Malone in 10 takes over the lead, and the crowd right in front of us here at the grandstand at Anderson Speedway is just in a complete frenzy as very, very exciting action. That pass for the lead, and now can Phipps do something about it and retake the lead he had for a long time back?
Well, we'll see if Ronnie Phipps was holding Terry Malone up any. I personally don't believe that he was. Looks like Ronnie Phipps is able to stay right there on Terry's back bumper. What happened was coming up on a lap car there, Ronnie Phipps hesitated just a little bit, decided whether to go high or low, and Terry never hesitated. He made his move, and he got alongside and made the pass.
And now how well Terry Malone can run with the lead. You talked about his experience. I'm inclined to think he can definitely handle a lead and not get in those sort of situations where he would get picked off like Ronnie Phipps did. The question now, at this point in the National Crown for the figure eights, who's running just behind these top cars in terms of positioning? So often we've seen in racing of any kind that it becomes problematic for the top cars at the later point in the race, and others come up and take advantage. So we will try to get a handle on who's running 3rd. We think Joe McKinney is yet still, although Mike Riddle, or Doug Riddle, I should say, has been in there battling McKinney for the 3rd and 4th spot for some time, but nevertheless, the leaders are really having at it.
Yes, they are. They're putting on a ding-dong battle here for these fans, and the fans are eating up their loving every minute of it. As you alluded to earlier, Terry Malone knows that he got around Ronnie Phipps because Ronnie hesitated just a slight second there, and Terry is going to do his best not to have that situation come back and bite him.
What you see up on the track occasionally isn't any kind of a smoke or anything out of the leader cars. It's just chem dry or whatever they use at Anderson Speedway to take care of some spills. And there you saw a little bit of it again, but Malone is certainly in good shape mechanically by all accounts, huh?
Absolutely. That car is running in top form. Otherwise, he wouldn't be leading the National Crown at this point, I guarantee you that.
Malone and Ronnie Phipps, 1-2. Oh, very close as Ronnie Phipps almost gets smashed in the right rear quarter, but he makes it across cleanly.
Okay, that time by, I was able to get a look at third, fourth, and fifth. Doug Riddle is running third, followed by Joe McKinney, and Rod Phipps has worked his way. No, I'm sorry, I take that back. That was Chris Bear in the 85 that is in fifth place, followed by Rod Phipps in the 18 and sixth.
All right, so Chris Bear from Anderson still very much in the hunt, but it's decision time for Terry Malone and Ronnie Phipps. And in this sort of racing, there isn't much you can do in terms of getting the lead other than just making a clean play, or if something negative would happen to Malone. But you're telling me that Malone, with this experience, almost certainly isn't going to do anything stupid here.
It would be something that'd be very surprising. Terry Malone has a lot of laps around here. He's a very cool customer when it comes to this type of racing, and he very much wants to win the National Crown. 41
laps are in the books. We're down to the final 9. Fans, hold on to your seats. I think we're in for some excitement here shortly. Look how close Phipps is racing Malone from behind. It doesn't get much better than this, Greg.
Boy, that's absolutely right. They were literally bumper to bumper, and looks like Ronnie Phipps is getting just a little better run right in the middle of the turn, but Terry's able to pull away from him. And you see Chris Bear get hard on the brakes coming through the crossover that time as the leaders went by in front of him.
And now we are going to apparently go to caution, and with that, we'll come back for the exciting finish of the National Crown for the figure eights. Bowling Speedway, as we go back to green, Greg Wood runs down the top cars.
We see Terry Malone is still in the lead there solidly, followed by Ronnie Phipps. Doug Riddle in third place, a very solid third, followed by Joe McKinney. And in fifth place is Chris Bear. In sixth, the 18 of Rod Phipps. Those are your 6 cars that are left on the lead lap, Mike.
Greg, it's crunch time up at the front of the pack. That caution did allow Doug Riddle to get much closer to Malone and Phipps as those two, look at them go together. Unbelievable. They get up onto the track and they go high and take themselves out of the race virtually, with Doug Riddle slipping underneath, and we have a new leader with just a few laps to go.
Doug Riddle does jump out in the lead right there here late in the race, followed by Joe McKinney. Terry Malone is able to get back down and get untangled and jump back into third place. It looks like Ronnie Phipps has fallen out of the race after having led so much of it.
Well, he could be just so incredibly frustrated by that turn of events. Heads up for Malone to reestablish and get back in it, but is there enough time for anyone to reel in Doug Riddle from Anderson, Indiana, and do anything about it? It's going to be very, very difficult. Riddle, it looks to be in an opportunistic position right now to maybe take the checkered flag here tonight.
Oh, he absolutely is. He's definitely on pins and needles. He's got to get back to the crossover here now a few more times and deal with this traffic and deal with Joe McKinney and Terry Malone and Chris Bear just breathing down his neck. We do look over there and see and get the report that Ronnie Phipps does have a flat tire.
Oh, and look at Doug Riddle now as he comes around. Will take the white flag. Riddle takes the white flag with Joe McKinney and Terry Malone right behind. It looks like a no-doubter now, Greg.
Yes, it does. I would never say a no-doubter. Doug Riddle still has to go through the crossover one more time.
And he will come around, and he's playing it very cautious. He certainly has the lead to do so. And Doug Riddle will take the checkered flag and win the 47th annual National Crown for the figure eights here at Anderson Speedway. Joe McKinney will finish second. Terry Malone is third. Chris Bear from Anderson fourth. And Rod Phipps from Anderson in car 18 will finish fifth. Another thrilling event, as there you see Doug Riddle come around, and this National Crown certainly holds with form as excitement galore here tonight.
Oh, absolutely. That was excitement from lap 1 to lap 50. That was a very good race, and looks like we're going to get a good shot here of Doug Riddle. He's really excited inside that car. This is his first National Crown win.
Has to be quite a heartbreaker, certainly for Ronnie Phipps, who had much attention. There's Joe McKinney, the Middletown, Indiana driver. Ronnie Phipps, who led for the better part of this race, and now Terry Malone. There you see the 10 car finishing third. Phipps and Malone pretty much took each other out, but Doug Riddle, how opportunistic, running third at a key point in the race, and came up, took the lead, and he you almost certainly would be the first to know that he's a fortunate driver. But again, you mentioned patience a little bit earlier, and patience really pays off for Doug Riddle tonight.
That's right, patience and traffic. And you alluded to the fact that a lot of times two guys racing for the lead, anything can happen. And these guys that are in third, fourth, and fifth, they're sitting there waiting for something to happen, and it did.
Look at his buddies pounding on the car. Doug Riddle gets out now, and he is just very, very excited. All of his people celebrating around him. And
that's his dad, getting a big hug from his dad there.
So this is really one for the record books when you can win this historic event, the National Crown for the figure eights. And there's R.J. Scott, Anderson Speedway race director, as he comes out to congratulate our winner. And Doug Riddle, pretty much a young guy, 25 years old, I do believe. So a special, special night for him. And you could tell, worked up a sweat tonight, as you have to think Kenny Wright has the trophy in hand, and he will shortly make the presentation. And Doug says, enough with the race attire. I need to cool off a little bit as the celebration begins down on the start-finish line at Anderson Speedway. Doug Riddle actually takes just a little bit of private moment to reflect and further celebrate. This puts him in the history books for all time, this kind of win, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, we just witnessed the 47th annual National Crown, so at most there can be 47 guys who put their name alongside this championship, and there are several of them that have repeated, so there's well fewer than 47 people have ever won a National Crown.
So almost certainly a big celebration set to let loose as a very, very large crowd at Anderson Speedway tonight, enjoying this dramatic event, this great historic event, and certainly the crowd and the excitement that abounded doing justice to this event, as it looks to be stronger than ever in this, the 50th year of Anderson Speedway, as you say, the 47th year of this event. Greg Wood, great working with you tonight.
Mike, I really appreciate you letting me slip in here and share Mike time with you. We really appreciate working with you, and this was a really exciting race. They did not let us down, as you said.
All right, again, Doug Riddle, our winner. Joe McKinney finishing second, and Terry Malone coming in third. So, Greg, as we wrap up this telecast here tonight, we thank you and certainly all of the fine people from TCI Media and their production to put this event together this evening. Oh, and look at Doug Riddle now, whipping that checkered flag around, and he grabs that trophy, and you can almost be assured that trophy will occupy a very prominent place somewhere in his household, or better yet, at the race shop, huh?
Absolutely. I'm sure they'll find a good, safe place to put that.
Once again, we congratulate Doug Riddle, the winner of the National Crown for the figure eights. For Greg Wood, I'm Mike Miller. Until next time, we'll see you at Anderson Speedway.
The Anderson Speedway, Action Entertainment Incorporated.